Welcome to IOC. I'm JP, otherwise known as Rug Pull Finder, and I normally look like this on social media. But today, I look like this. I like to hide myself so the bad guys can't find me. This series is about breaking down the crypto tracing challenges that we put forward each month, showing investigators, beginners through to advanced, how to get real results using free or low-cost tools. If you want practical skills without the price tag, subscribe and follow along. Hit the button. Okay, so we're going to start off with the trace. And this is from a real case back in 2023, which it was a very unfortunate case. A gentleman lost $100,000 or just over. And, that was on the back of a fake Twitter profile that had approached him, which appeared to be a beautiful girl. So he was talking with her. She then introduced him to a platform called Ether mining, and then from there, that's where the investment took place. And then he realized that the assets were then stolen. So we helped this guy out for free. There was no cost to this, and we managed to get to the end point, which most people did on this challenge. Actually, they got most people got to the right end point here, but a few of you didn't as well. So we're going to go through what to look out for when doing a case like this. Okay. Remember, if you want to ask questions, feel free to use chat. Feel free to come off mute as well. Completely up to you. It is a recorded session, so it's going to be on YouTube. So just bear that in mind. But let's go. This transaction, let's follow it. Okay, we're on Etherscan right now. We're in dark mode, but we can see that it goes to this OXCC 461. Okay, 100,042 USDT worth 99,942 or thereabouts. So we click on this address. We're just going to use Etherscan. I might even show you some MetaSleuth later on as well, but we'll see how we get on. Now, what's interesting about this particular transaction is, I don't know if you noticed that, but on the transaction, if you click on it, what Etherscan does for you is it brings up the token itself. So in this case, it's Tether USDT, right? So what that does is it takes the address that you're looking at and it filters it specifically by the tokens that you're specifically looking for, which is ideal in this case. Now, in this address, there isn't anything else really. We've got this USDT coming in and it goes out specifically to OXF8B. Coming back over to this screen, which is filtering the tokens, don't forget. Let's now click on the F8B. What do we see here? Well, all of a sudden we see many more transactions. Instead of like 2 or 3, we've got 212. Okay, and we probably need to be aware of that throughout our analysis. At the same time, we need to find where our assets have gone. We are in wallet F8BB. Okay, now the warning that I have for you in this address is this. If we go to a tool like Arkham, which again is a free tool, so when we look at this from a visualizer perspective, there's many inputs and there's actually many outputs as well. And at this point, you've got to start asking the question, well, what is the behavior here? In this particular case, there's a thought that's crossed my mind that this could be like an OTC desk or something like that, an over-the-counter desk, where somebody's bought and sold crypto for cash or something like that. But you've got to start thinking about why else would an address have so many inputs and so many outputs. But there's a methodology that we can use which helps us get to an endpoint here. Transaction takes place on the 29th of June 2023 at 3:30 in the morning UTC. Okay, so we'll just go back forward. We'll skip through here. So we've got to look for that. Now we're in relative date here, so it's going to be like 941, something like that, 941 days ago. Recommendation, just always put this in show 100 records per page. It just saves you clicking another button. There it is. Okay, so we've got our fake phishing in, which is the exact address that we was looking at. We've got F8B220, and we can see here that we've got 100,042 USDT coming in, and then moments later, literally 3 minutes later, 100,000 USDT goes out. Why is that significant? That's key. Okay, I think that we can use LIFO at that point, which is last in, first out. Has anyone used that one before? that methodology, because it's only a few minutes apart, it's likely that it's the same person, okay? Because they've probably sent it waiting for it to come into a new wallet. They're probably just using buffer wallets as like a laundering technique. The other alternative is that it could be an organized crew, right? And person A has just sent it to person B, and person B might have been waiting for it. The truth is, we don't know, and we're never going to know. Last in, first out is very valid. I think we could... Now, in terms of LIFO, just to give you a quick overview there, last in, first out is a cost basis and asset attribution method where the most recently acquired units of crypto are considered the first ones disposed of. And that's really what we're seeing here, okay? So the first set that have been acquired for our trace, we can ignore everything before because we're specifically looking from this point in time. But the first one disposed thereafter is this one, which means that checks with last in, first out. So we use it to determine which incoming funds are linked to outgoing transactions when analyzing wallets and exchanges and things like that. And it can be used in a forensic accounting, tax analysis, and investigation. So it's pretty cool. But it really does emphasize recency, which can be especially useful when investigating rapid movements, wallet layering, or peel chains, and attempts to obscure fund origin. By the way, there was one person who made a mistake here, which I do want to call out, because whilst, I'm not going to mention names, but I think this is a mistake that other people could make as well, which, I think gets you to the wrong position. Okay, so what they said is that, what this person said is that the assets come in here, but further up, might even be on the earlier page, there's a gate IO deposit address out. Okay, so let me just quickly show you that. We're using last in, first out, right? So we've got last in, first out. Makes sense. After that, we have lots of transactions in, okay? Which, you're talking big numbers here, like 27K, 15K, 13K, there's a lot of money here. So those assets coming in kind of override ours if we was going down that other methodology. And so it doesn't make sense. For me, what makes most sense in this case is to go last in, first out. So let's follow this one, because it does get a little bit more interesting as we go as well. Right, the next one, this one's nice and easy. So we're looking for 941 days relative again. There's only 123 transactions in this one anyway, but if you put it, show 100 records, it just makes the page nice and long, so you don't have to keep clicking through pages. Okay, so 941 days, okay, 941. Okay, here we go. We've got the 100,000 in. So let me just, coming in, we had 100,000, which was 100,000 straight in from our address, which is this one, okay? If we look at the time, 3:35 again, so yeah, that perfectly matches. So what we see here is, again, last in, first out, you got $10, but then you have 999,990, which when you combine those two is 100 perfectly, so we're okay. LIFO still checks out here. It's still a very valid method to use. So it goes to the address, and by the way, here we're starting to see patterns. So 20,000 in, 20,000 out, 100,000 in, 100,000 out, okay? 48,909 plus 2,500 in, 51,400 out. So there's a pattern here, okay? So let's go to this address. This one starts to get a little bit more interesting. There's our 10 and 90. This time it is 429, 434. Okay, but notice what else is happening here. We've got our 100,000, which is these two, okay? But we also have 8,000 before and 22,600 after. So altogether here, we've got what, 130,000? Yeah, that's about 130,000. We've got our 100,000 coming in, plus 22, so that's 122,000, plus a bit more, plus the 8,000 here. So it checks out, 130,000 there or thereabouts. So we can still follow our assets into this address using last in, first out. Okay, 62 in, 68 in, that is our amount. Now there's an additional 30,000 here, okay? So we're starting to accumulate, which could be a problem depending on the scenario. However, all three of these are bucketed together and sent out to A29. Now, A29 represents the exchange that we're going to. It's not labeled here, and people were required to use different tools, different research techniques to find out what A29 is. So, I mean, the easy one, the free one, is to use Arkham, right? And you could put that into there, and we get this attribution. Now, Arkham themselves aren't 100% sure that it's B2C2, okay? And that's why there's this question mark here in this logo. But when you start to look at things like the first funder, okay, and you open up this more menu, you start to see that B2C2 were the first funders on Binance Smart Chain and on Ethereum, okay? The other thing that I would check to look at that attribution is I would go to the top counterparties tab just here. And we can see, look, 24,208 transactions worth 46.25 billion. I would say, yeah, it's pretty, I would say it's B2C2. Okay, so the answer is B2C2. But there's one or two tricks that I want to show you as well. So we'll go back to that previous address, which was OX397. And I don't know if you all know this, but there is another tool called MistTrack. So that's Mist with the double T, track.io. And in fact, if you put dashboard.misttrack.io, you'll have to log in with a wallet, but they do allow you to do searches on here. The reason why I like to use MistTrack is because it gives you more than one data point. You can go down and you can zoom in and you can see that thefts are associated to this address as well. This is the one prior to B2C2. We can also see the out transactions to B2C2. We can see some out transaction to Coinbase and to Binance. In fact, there's probably double the amount gone out to Binance. So there's a couple of subpoena points there as well, which is pretty important. But that's important information as well. We've got a different data source to say that this address is also related to theft. Now, I also noticed one of the mistakes that people was making is that they was just using Arkham to do the tracing. Arkham, for me, is not the best tracing tool. It's great for wallet attribution. It's great for looking at relationships. But when you're doing tracing, it's hard, especially if you're trying to use the visualizer. And this is why. Is because it just gets so confusing. Like, imagine trying to explain this in a court. You know, it looks something like this, okay? When you do the analysis that we just did and you post in the addresses, please don't do that. You only want to show the transactions that are specific to the trace that you're working on, okay? Here is one I did earlier. This is just on MetaSleuth, and I've put in some notations just to say, assume that we're using LIFO. I'm going to continue the analysis, but I'm also looking at things like the speed of the transactions as well. Okay, so we see that information there. I put in some warnings, okay, where it's not so certain what the purpose of that address is. And this was just for the example of that Gate.io example. Okay, so I don't think that you could defend this particular example in court if you was to choose Gate.io. I think the LIFO example is much stronger. And then, you know, just make some notes about the different levels of accumulation. And I think that's really important. And if you're not careful and you don't consider those accumulations, you can go off the wrong track quite easily. Okay, so there you go. I'll post this chart in the channel, and you can feel free to dissect it and comment and do what you need to do with it. But that's January's crypto tracing challenge.